If you are settled, so we can start the lecture. Okay, sit down. What comes under specialized connective tissue? Bones, cartilage. Other than that, fluid. So this is the classification of connective tissue. In some books, it might differ. So you have already studied this classification. The point is specialized connective tissue that we will be discussing today about the bone and the cartilage. So why we have put this bone and cartilage in a specialized category? How does it differ from the rest of? How does it differ from the rest of the connective tissue classification? It must be containing something specialized. Yes. So what is the special thing that it is containing? The cells, different fibers, the cartilage cells which are called as chondrocytes, bone cells which are called as osteocytes. So they are specialized connective tissue having the specialized fibers as well as the cells. So this cartilage and bone is making the skeletal framework. So bony framework of the body is formed by the bones and the cartilage, which you very well know that the human body, if you see the skeletal system, it is divided into axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. So axial skeleton is the one which is around the center axis of the body or the midline. What else we call, if we do the section of the human body, what do you call that plane? Mid-sagittal sections. So in the mid-sagittal sections, what are the bones that are coming? The plane is crossing the skull, vertebra, sternum. So this is forming the center axis, skull, vertebra, sternum, and by the side of the sternum, the ribs. So this is the composition of the axial skeleton. What is the appendicular skeleton? The pectoral girdle and the pelvic girdle, they are forming the appendicular skeleton that are hanging by the side of the body and is supporting the lower limb, is supporting the rest of the body. Now what is the purpose of the cartilage and where they are present? What does the cartilage do? Smoothing of the surface, frictionless surface is provided by the cartilage. So any movement at the joints will take place. So that should be friction free because bones are not very much smooth. So it has to be made smoothened by the appearance of the cartilage. So these appearance of the cartilage makes it smooth. The joint surface will be smooth and freely movable so that the synovial joints can be formed. And otherwise the cartilage is also present at the ends of the bones. It is also present as an elastic cartilage on the tip of the nose, on the ear pinna. The ear pinna is all formed of the elastic cartilage. So this is the cartilage. Next, what would be the components? In any specialized connective tissue, there will be the components. Last row, please don't smile. If you don't want to study, you can go out. Yes, you, yellow one. So components are cells and the extracellular matrix. Cells is the one component. Other component, all of the connective, these cells of this connective tissue will be present in something. Suppose that is a surface. That surface is formed of the extracellular matrix or the intercellular substance. So these two terms are interchangeable. If it is written extracellular matrix or intercellular substance, it means the same. So what does the extracellular matrix contain? It contains the ground substance. What is the ground substance formed of? Glycoaminoglycans, proteoglycans. Then you have fibrous element. You have different type of fibers that you have studied in the connective tissue. Collagen fibers, elastic fibers, reticular fibers. So they are forming the framework of the cartilage. So any structure will have a framework. So this framework is provided by the extracellular matrix to the cartilage or to the bone. Now coming to the different types of cartilages, that are present in the human body: hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and the fibrocartilage. Now, these three cartilage you will be in detail will be discussed in the histology, because these are the histological picture. Here I am just going to discuss about what are the peculiarities of these different type of cartilages, how you can see them and how you will differentiate them. So first of all, the hyaline cartilage. The hyaline cartilage or the articular cartilage. So mainly over the joints, any end of the bone will be covered with a cartilage, which is the hyaline cartilage, and there it is called as the articular cartilage. So hyaline cartilage and the articular cartilage, they are interchangeable terms. Otherwise, the hyaline cartilage is also present in the ossification when the bone is growing. So the framework of the bone is also formed by the hyaline cartilage. Now, how you will differentiate between the hyaline cartilage? Hyaline cartilage, first thing, the cells. The cells here in the hyaline cartilage, they are in pair or quadruple. So they will be in the present in a space which is called as lacuna. So if I see this space is called as lacuna, and the space is filled with the chondrocytes. And in case of hyaline cartilage, there are presence of paired cartilage cells or chondrocytes. And rest of the surface in between these lacuna is filled with the amorphous substance, that is the ground substance, and the fibers. The fibers present here are collagen fibers. So when you see this picture in the histological slide, this slide will give you a glassy appearance, ground glassy appearance. So hyaline cartilage will have a particular appearance which is called as ground glass appearance. Now we have to differentiate this hyaline from the elastic and the fibrocartilage. So this one is the elastic cartilage. What we can see here, the number of chondrocytes are more and they are present in a single number in a lacunae. They are not paired. One single lacuna is having a one single chondrocyte. When you see the histological picture, this all cartilage lacuna, they are present in a packed form. It just have a railway track appearance, like the pebbles are present on the railway track now. Similarly, when you see the histological picture, you will see that all the lacunae, they are packed inside a layer of a perichondrium. So it has less of fibers, though it has a ground substance, it has a fibers, but you can see very little of the fibers here. So the fibers present here are the elastic fibers. Next, coming to the third one, fibrocartilage. This fibrocartilage has a lesser number of cells and a lesser number of fibers. So we can easily differentiate the hyaline, elastic and the fibrocartilage. So more number of cells will be present in the elastic, less number of cells will be present in the fibrocartilage, and the lacunae containing the paired or quadruple number of chondrocytes with a ground glassy appearance will be present in the hyaline cartilage. Now next, coming to the bone. So what is the function of the bone? Why the bone is present? So it is first for the framework of the body. Next, it is providing protection to the different viscera. So what are the viscera? They are protected by the skeletal framework in thorax, heart, lungs, in the pelvic area, bladder, genital organs, they are saved in the rigid framework of this skeletal system bone. Then it is acting as a lever for the muscles. It is providing attachment to the muscles, and the muscles, they act as a lever for the muscles to act. So pull of action of the muscle will be with the help of a bone. Next, it manufactures the blood cells. So marrow cavities, red bone marrow is present in the bones. So the manufacture of blood cells will take place in the bone. Then it is the storehouse of calcium and phosphate. Now this is very important. What are the different parts of a long bone? You all know what is long bone. Any bone that has a shaft, upper end, lower end, it is a long bone. The only long bone that is lying horizontally in the body is clavicle. Rest of the bones, they are lying vertically in the body. So now here we have given the different names because it is we will be discussing about the growing bone also. So the different names here are, for the shaft, it is diaphysis. For upper end or lower end, these are called as epiphysis. So the shaft is called as diaphysis, ends are called as epiphysis. Now at the epiphyseal ends of the diaphysis, what would be the epiphyseal ends of the diaphysis? This is diaphysis and this is towards the epiphysis. So it is called as the epiphyseal end of diaphysis. Any confusion? No. Diaphysis, epiphyseal end of the diaphysis, epiphysis. Now in between the epiphyseal end of the epiphysis, diaphysis and the epiphysis lies a growth plate, which is the epiphyseal end of the, this is the epiphyseal plate, which will be seen as a epiphyseal line when the adult bone is formed. So this epiphyseal plate is a part of a growing bone. And what is written here is cartilage, epiphyseal plate of cartilage. So we have different regions of the cartilage here, different zones of this epiphyseal cartilage plate that we'll be discussing here. And next term is metaphysis. So epiphyseal end of the diaphysis is called metaphysis. One term is diaphysis, other one is epiphyseal end of the diaphysis. Epiphyseal end of the diaphysis is bearing metaphysis and one is epiphysis. And in between the metaphysis and the epiphysis is lying the growth plate. So I start from this side, epiphysis, epiphyseal plate of the cartilage. This is metaphysis and this is diaphysis, right? Then you have perichondrium, periosteum and endosteum. So what is periosteum? That is the lining that is present on the outer side of the bone is the endosteum, is the periosteum, and the inner lining where the marrow cavity will be present will be the endosteum. Now what are primary centers? What is secondary center? Before that, what is shaft? That is diaphysis. In the adult bone is formed of a compact bone, while the epiphysis is formed of the spongy bone. Now the primary center and the secondary center. Have you heard of this term, primary and secondary centers? Yes. So who will explain me? Yes, please. Sit down. Primary center is present at the diaphysis. So any bone growth will take by the, or the ossification will take place with the help of a primary centers or the secondary centers. We call the primary centers that develop during the intrauterine life, during the 9 months. If the center is appearing, that is termed as the primary center. If it is appearing after birth, it is called as the secondary center. The secondary center is present at the epiphysis and the primary center they develop at the diaphysis. So primary center, diaphysis, shaft में primary center located होता है और ends में secondary centers located होते हैं. तो primary center develop होता है during intrauterine life, secondary center develop होगा after the birth of the baby. Then which is the growing end of the bone? You have two epiphyses here, upper one, lower one. So two ends, two epiphyses. So which one will be the growing end of the bone? क्योंकि एक साइड पे बोन फ्यूज कर जाएगी, it is not like both the bones, sides of the bones, they are growing at a same pace. So one end will be fused earlier than the other. That means this epiphysis and diaphysis of the upper end may fuse earlier or this may fuse earlier. So if this fuses earlier and this fuses later, so later one will be called as the growing end of the bone. Now coming to the different types of epiphysis that has been classified according to the weight bearing, action of the muscle. So one is the pressure epiphysis, traction epiphysis, atavistic epiphysis and the aberrant epiphysis. The two, that is the pressure and the traction, they are related to the articular part of the bone and non-articular part of the bone. So pressure epiphysis is the one that is the articular region of a bone. Suppose this bone is femur and this is the head of the femur. It is articulating with the acetabulum of the hip bone. So this articular area is the pressure epiphysis of this bone because it is weight bearing. So any weight bearing articular surface of a bone will be classified under the pressure epiphysis. So examples for this is head, that means the upper end of the bone, condyles, that means lower end of the bone of femur, then head of the humerus, that means upper end of the bone, capitulum and trochlea, that is the lower end of the humerus. So these are the articular surfaces which are forming the shoulder joint, elbow joint, hip joint, knee joint. So these surfaces, they are bearing the pressure epiphysis. Other one is the traction epiphysis. The traction epiphysis is present near the pressure epiphysis, but the part where it is present is a non-articular part. So this is the articular part of the bone and this is non-articular. That means it is not taking part in the joint formation. So here the traction epiphysis is present. That means the muscle attachment will be there and the action of the muscle pull will be occurring on the traction epiphysis. Now difference between the two is one is weight bearing, other is the muscle pull is there. So these two epiphyses, the pressure epiphysis fuses first, then the traction epiphysis. So you will be asked about these types of epiphysis in the exam. So you have to write the different classification of this. You have to write the example of these epiphyses, and this is a very common question for Viva also. Next is atavistic epiphysis. Atavistic epiphysis is phylogenetic classification. That means the part of the bone which is present in the lower animals as a different bone, but in a human it is present as a single bone. For the best example is the scapula, the part of the scapula having the coracoid process. So in the lower animals, it is present as a separate bone, while in the human, it is attached, or it is a single bone with a scapula where it is called as the coracoid process. So different processes are there in the scapula: coracoid process, acromion process, spinous process, but only the coracoid process was present as a single bone, but now it is present as a one single bone, that is the scapula having the coracoid process. So this is the best example for the atavistic epiphysis. Next is the aberrant epiphysis. Now this aberrant epiphysis is present in the metacarpals, where the metacarpals is present in the hand. So of the 5 metacarpals, the head of the first metacarpal is bearing the epiphysis, while the rest of the other metacarpals, second, third, fourth, fifth, they are bearing the epiphysis on the lower end. So one is different, that it is only present at the head of the first metacarpal, while rest of these metacarpals, they are bearing the epiphysis at the lower end. This is the aberrant epiphysis. Now coming to the growth plate or the epiphyseal plate. So growth plate we have seen here in this picture, the epiphyseal plate of the cartilage. So it is present in the growing bone. So different zone of ossifications are present here. Now these are the zones of ossification. First zone we can see the cartilage, while in the lower one we can see some ossifications. So the bone formation is taking place at the lower zone. So starting from the upper zone, that is the zone of reserve cartilage cells. So that is towards the epiphyseal end. First zone will be present towards the epiphyseal end. Now at this area, the reserve cartilage cells are present, or the cells that will divide to form the bone, they are present. And this is starting from the cartilage cells. So cartilage model will be formed, which is thereupon ossified by the osteoblasts. So this is the cartilage cells which are called as chondrocytes. Next zone is zone of proliferating cartilage. When the term is proliferating, that means these cells will be dividing. So a lot of mitosis will be occurring and there will be an arrangement of the cells. So here we can see a parallel arrangement. So these are cartilage cells which are divided by mitosis and they are arranging themselves in a stacked manner as well as along the long axis of the shaft of the long bone. So next is the cell of mature and hypertrophied cartilage. Now the cells are getting matured. When the cartilage cells get matured and they get hypertrophied, so here you can see the lacuna are present. Now cartilage cells, they are getting removed. After this zone is the calcification. When the calcium deposition will occur, the cartilage cells will be removed, and in the last zone, that is the ossification, this calcified area will start forming. That means the osteoblasts will take the place of these cartilage cells. So, cartilage cells, they get removed in this zone of calcification. And the last zone is the zone of ossification, where the osteoblast will take over for the ossification of the matrix of the bone. So these are the 5 zones that are present in the growth plate, starting from the upper end and are coming towards the diaphysis. Now the blood supply of the long bone. Now this long bone, it has various blood supplies. One is the periosteal blood supply. So any artery that is running in the region of that bone will be giving the branches towards the outer side where the periosteum is present. So these are called as periosteal arteries. So outermost, these are the periosteal arteries, which are the branches of the adjacent arteries that are running over that area. Suppose in the humerus there is a radial artery. So radial artery will be giving branches to the periosteum of the bone, which are called as the periosteal arteries. Next is the nutrient artery. Nutrient artery is also the branch of a artery that is nearby. Suppose in the humerus only there is the profunda brachiae artery. So profunda brachiae artery gives branch as the nutrient artery of the humerus. Now there is a foramen over the bone. In every bone there is a foramen which is called as a nutrient foramen, and that nutrient foramen is present in the middle of the shaft. So somewhere over the middle of the shaft you will find a nutrient foramen. Now this nutrient artery, when enters the bone, it will divide, that it goes upside and towards the lower side. So when it divides, it's going up and low. Now at the upper end towards the metaphysis, in the growing bone, it is forming the metaphyseal arteries. This is a peculiar point about the metaphyseal arteries. They are forming the hairpin loop and they are the end arteries. So any end artery that is present in the bone is the region where the metaphysis is present. So the end arteries will be present areas. So if they are end arteries, so they are more prone for the infection. So this area is prone for the infection, metaphyseal arteries. Then you have epiphyseal artery. So this epiphyseal artery, it gets supply from the epiphyseal artery, and these branches are coming from the anastomosis between the epiphyseal and the metaphyseal artery. Now these are the different cells which are forming the bone. All of you know about these cells. Osteogenic cells, osteoblast cells. Do you understand this terminology? What is osteogenic cells? Yes, please. What do you understand by osteogenic cells? Whenever there is a term genic, what does it mean? It can be chondrogenic, it can be osteogenic. It is forming something. So what will be arising from the osteogenic cells? Something related to bone. So what would be that something? It is forming the bone. What are the cells that origin from these? You heard of osteoblast? Osteoblast. So what does osteoblast mean? Osteogenic cells, they are the stem cells which give rise to the osteoblast cells. B for birth. So osteoblast cells will give rise to the osteocytes. So osteocytes are the cells that will be present in the matrix of the bone. Then the osteocytes will be broken down with the help of the osteoclast. So bone destroying cells, they are called as osteoclast cells. So here what is the location of this different cells? So outer side there will be present of osteogenic cells. Then you have osteoblast cells. Then osteoblast cells, if you see this matrix, you can see the osteocytes here. And these are the bone destroying cells, osteoclast cells. Now coming to the section of the bone, transverse section and the longitudinal section. So there is a Haversian canal system. All of you must be knowing about the osteon. So Haversian canal system of a bone is called as the osteon. Now this osteon is formed of a Haversian canal as well as the osteocytes and the lamellae. So different lamellae are present in a bone. Whenever you see, if you see the compact bone, it is present in the form of a layers, concentric layers. When you section it, then you can see a transverse section. In the transverse section, we can see a Haversian canal running. Around this Haversian canal, we can see some dotted lines. Those dotted lines, they are called as the concentric lamellae. Now, these concentric lamellae of the two Haversian canals having some other lamellae also, which are termed as interstitial lamellae. And the outermost side the lamella is present is the circumferential. So this one is the Haversian canal. Around this Haversian canal, we can see these dashed areas. These dashed areas, they are called as the concentric lamellae. And what does a single dash containing? It is containing a lacuna which is filled with a osteocyte. So it has a osteocyte. So all these will be, which are concentric, you will call them as concentric. Then in between the concentric, these are the interstitial. All these are concentric, but these are not concentric. So these are called as interstitial lamellae. Now surrounding this one is the outermost side, which is bounding all these Haversian canals. So it is called as circumferential lamellae. What does a Haversian canal contain? Contains nerve and vessel. Now these Haversian canal, they are joined or communicate with the help of a Walkman's canal, which cannot be seen on the transverse section. It can be seen on the longitudinal section. So in the longitudinal section, we can see the Haversian canal, which are connected by the oblique canals, which are called as the Walkman's canals. So if you have understood this, we can move on to the other classification. Yes? So other classification of the bone is the morphological classification. So first we will go through this table. There is a phylogenetical classification, exoskeleton, endoskeleton. Does human body has exoskeleton? Yes. What are the examples? Nails and enamel. Then endoskeleton is rest of the bones. Then the regional classification we have discussed, axial and the appendicular. Next is developmental. Membranous ossification. There is cartilaginous ossification. There is a membranocartilaginous ossification. So these are the different terms. What do you understand by this? What is cartilaginous bone? What is membranous bone? Cartilaginous bone is the one. First, it is made of cartilage. The zones we have seen in the epiphyseal plate, they are the cartilage cells that proliferate, and later on they are calcified. So that is a cartilaginous model of the bone. What is membranous model? Already a cartilage cell is present in a preformed shape of a bone, and it is ossified by the osteoblast and the osteocyte. So that is the membranous ossification of the bone. Third one is membranocartilaginous. Some bones, they are getting ossified with both the parts, like the clavicle. Clavicle has a membranocartilaginous ossification. So it has a membranous ossification also and the cartilaginous ossification also. Then coming to the structural classification, do you understand what is compact bone and the spongy bone? Compact bone is the one that is having the lamellae. The structure we were discussing was of the compact bone. The different lamellae, they are present in the form of the concentric layers. If you cut the diaphysis, you can see like the bark of the tree. So this is the lamellar bone or the compact bone. What is the spongy bone containing? Like the epiphyseal ends of the bone, they have spongy bones. A trabecular meshwork of the fibers will be present, woven fibers with the presence of a lamellae. So there will be not a particular arrangement. A network-like structure will be present. If you see a section of the bone, there is a network of the trabeculae containing the osteocytes. So that is the spongy bone. Now the morphological classification, you may be well versed with this, that what are long bones, what are short bones, flat bones, irregular bones, sesamoid bones, and the pneumatic bones. So what are long bones? Yes, very nice. which is having the shaft, diaphysis, epiphysis, upper end, lower end. So any bone having a shaft, upper end, lower end will be classified under the long bone. Flat bones, which are anteroposteriorly, they are flat, like scapula, like sternum. Irregular bones, they don't have a definite shape, like the hip bone, like the vertebrae. They don't have a definite shape. You cannot define the shape of that. Then short bones. Short bones, they are present in the upper limb and the lower limb. That is the carpal bones and the tarsal bones. Pneumatic bones. Pneumatic, as the term is saying, they are having the air cells. So sphenoid bone is having the air cell. Maxilla in the face, they are having the air cells. Mastoid bone is having the air cells. So they come under the pneumatic bones. The last one is a sesamoid bone. So what is a sesamoid bone? The bone which develops in a tendon is a sesamoid bone. Any particular feature of this sesamoid bone? It has no Haversian canal system. It has no perichondrium. It ossifies by single center because it develops after birth in the tendon. Example for a sesamoid bone is patella is the largest, developing in the tendon of quadriceps. Other one is a pisiform, developing in the tendon of the flexor carpi ulnaris. Now the laws of ossification. So different types of ossification. One is intramembranous ossification, intracartilaginous. That means membranous ossification and the cartilaginous ossification that we have discussed. Then how the ossification of the bone occurs. It occurs centripetally, so it starts from the center and goes towards the periphery. Then what are the different centers? Primary center, secondary center. Primary center is the one developing during the intrauterine life, and usually around the 8th week of intrauterine life, these centers, they appear. And secondary centers, those are appearing after birth. Growing end of the bone, the end which is fusing later with the diaphysis will be the growing end of the bone. Law of union of ossification. Law of union of ossification says if the center is appearing first, it will fuse last, and the center which appear later will fuse early. तो जो पहले आया वो बाद में फ्यूज हुआ, जो बाद में आया वो पहले फ्यूज हुआ. This is the law of union of ossification. Now what is the direction of the nutrient foramen? Now the direction of the nutrient foramen will decide the growing end of the bone. We don't know what is the growing end of the bone. कौन सा epiphysis पहले फ्यूज करेगा, कौन सा बाद में. Now in this picture, where the baby is sitting in a flexed position, so here you can see elbow and you can see knee here. So elbow and knee will define the growing ends of these bones, of these long bones. Now the direction of the upper limb, you can see both the arrows, they are pointing towards the elbow. So towards the elbow I go. So this will fuse, and the growing end of the bone in the upper limb will be the upper end of the humerus and the lower end of the radius and ulna. तो न्यूट्रिएंट आर्टरी की डायरेक्शन दिखा रहे हैं ये एरोज जो हैं. तो एल्बो की तरफ जा रहा है अगर न्यूट्रिएंट आर्टरी, तो उसका ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन जो होगा वो ग्रोइंग एंड होगा. ये एरो जा रहा है टुवर्ड्स द एल्बो, रेडियस और अल्ना का भी जा रहा है टुवर्ड्स एल्बो. तो इफ इट इज गोइंग टुवर्ड्स द एल्बो, तो दीज टू एंड. सर आपने बॉटल से खेल लिया हो तो पढ़ लें. क्या नाम है आपका? ध्रुव. तो रात को पढ़ोगे नहीं ना, पढ़ लोगे. So these ends where the arrows are not directed will be the growing end of the bone. So last row, middle one, can you explain? Yeah, next to you. Yeah, one with the specs. जी आप जो पीछे देख रहे हैं वही पीछे, लास्ट रो, सेकंड लास्ट रो, नेक्स्ट टू यू. हाँ, yes please stand up. Can you explain? Can you explain me law of union of ossification? हाँ, जो पहले आया वो बाद में गया. फिर the one which appears later. ठीक है. So this direction is pointing towards the elbow. So the growing ends will be the upper end of the humerus and the lower end of ulna. Now in the lower limb, you people will tell me which one will be the growing end. So from the knee, you can see these arrows are directed towards the hip bone, and this arrow is pointing towards the lower end of the tibia and fibula. So which one will be the growing end? Lower end of femur, upper end of tibia and fibula will be the growing end. Very good. So this is the chronology of appearance of the different secondary centers. You don't have to remember it. Next is the osteoarthritis or the clinical anatomy of this cartilage and the bone. Now osteoarthritis of the knee joint. Any of the joint is covered with the articular cartilage. So in this picture, we are showing you the knee joint only. Otherwise, it can happen on the any joint. The most commonly involved joint is the knee joint here. So at the knee joint, we can see this blue color. This blue color is a cartilage. This is articular cartilage, hyaline cartilage, and this pink color is a synovial fluid. So with time, there can be thinning of the cartilage, or the destruction of this cartilage can occur. Only the remnants of the cartilage are, as this osteoarthritis is progressing, the cartilage is getting destroyed. A stage will come when all of the cartilage, articular cartilage, is destroyed here. So both the ends of the bone, they are coming in contact with each other. If the frictional surface is coming in contact with each other, what will happen? The patient will have the pain during walking. When cartilage was present, why there was no pain? Friction was not there, and other thing is cartilage doesn't have any nerve supply. So it is this cartilage, presence of the cartilage doesn't make the movement painful. It is providing the painless movement, free movement, because of the presence of the synovial fluid. But if the arthritis, inflammation of the cartilage occurs, then this cartilage will be destroyed and the frictional movement will be present at any of the joint. So that is called as the osteoarthritis. Next is a developmental anomaly. So here we can see a newborn, and this picture is of achondroplasia. That means lesser side of development of chondro, that is cartilage. Very less cartilage is developed, very less bone formation will occur. So this is achondroplasia, which occurs because of the fibroblast growth factor receptor 3, if there is mutation in this factor. So what will happen? We can see large head, frontal bossing, nasal bridge is flat. This is the nasal bridge, which is flattened. And you can see the disproportionate growth of the limbs. Small upper limb, very small lower limb is present. So this condition can be diagnosed during the prenatal examination, prenatal ultrasounds. And why it is occurring? It is occurring because of the mutation of FGFR3. So this is all in the bone and cartilage. Hope you will go through this bone and cartilage. And if you find any difficulty, you can come to me. And please read the part of the growing bone. How does a bone grow? That is a very important question for you in exam. So growing bone will be asked by everyone. So how does a bone grow in general anatomy is a very important question. So please go through that part. Epiphysis is a very common question that is asked. Then the classification is very easy. You can remember that: long bone, short bone, flat bones. And the last one, the ossification laws. So all these points are the important